very timely conference because the opportunities to invest in greater stability and economic growth, and especially shared growth in Africa, is there. Now is the time. And I'm very pleased that the African Development Bank has named this conference the Africa Resilience Forum, because for too long, the continent has been framed through the lens of fragility instead of resilience. And even though the statistics are clear that there's been a eightfold increase in the number of violent incidents on the continent, the fact is that conflict of various sorts is still by far the exception. It is therefore there are resilience in the communities across the continent that are keeping things from being worse, that are keeping things from degenerating, and those are often invisible to the eye. And so what we want to do is use a resilience lens to understand where are the opportunities, where do things work, and build on them and scale them to other parts of the continent. Not just look at the opportunities here as problems to solve, but rather solutions that already exist that can be taken to scale. So when you're coming with the possibilities of mobilizing capital, as we do at Peaceinvest, to harness finance to build a more peaceful world, when we look at the opportunities in Africa through a resilience lens, it's only a field of solutions on which to build. So that means it's an exciting time. The solutions are there. The entrepreneurial creativity is there. The resources are there. We now need to connect the dots.
Yeah, because talking about connecting the dots, and I would like to look at it from the standpoint of investor education. African investors are still at different stages of understanding in terms of the opportunities in the markets here. And this is a new asset class. And I'm trying to imagine, for someone who's interested in investing in this asset class, how would they get information on how to invest in peace investments?
Right. So for the first thing to understand is that right now, many investments don't take place because for the project developer, the cost of capital is too high, especially debt. And that's based on the fact that the perception of risk of investing in African countries is too high. What we are doing in the new asset class of peace bonds is that we're blending the best techniques and the knowledge that we have from peace building into the structure of the investment itself to reduce the risks at source. Because what happens generally on the markets is that investors buy insurance to protect themselves, but they don't try to reduce the risks on the ground for the communities. But if you have that built into the investment, you actually reduce not only the risks for the communities, for the product developer and the investors, and you align the interests of all three levels towards a common goal so that you can address not just the economic growth opportunities, but you do so in a way that addresses the inequalities, the structural inequalities that divide our societies. I've spent many years working in peace building, including all over the continent, and can tell you that most of the issues that we've had to deal with in terms of violence and conflict have at their origin some form of exclusion and inequality, political, social, or economic exclusion, and the sense of injustice that that creates. So the answer is not more weapons. The answer is not taller walls and more security guards. The solution is to address those structural inequalities and create an economy that binds people together rather than tearing them apart.
But in terms of potential for this asset class, then, what are the opportunities you see for Africa?
Oh, they're endless. I think one of the most promising sectors is in food security, especially food loss, addressing food loss through modernizing food storage systems. Right now, 40% of food is lost between the harvest and the market, unnecessarily. And yet you have a feast and famine cycle on the food markets, also in terms of prices, that is extortionary. And so people can't, so what you have often is that a farmer will sell, or the farmers in an area will sell their produce all at the same time, not get very much for their harvest because they need the cash. But people who are buying often come from across the border. They're buying the food, storing it over months, and then selling it back to the same farmer for 4 times the price. Imagine the indignity of having to buy your own food back at 4 times the price. It's crazy. So these are solutions that are possible, and we're working on models that associate the farmers as co-owners of the silos, and modern silos with temperature control, humidity control, and everything, so that not only do we start flattening the curve of food prices, but it allows the farmer to double, triple their income, have a stock of food that they can use as collateral on a loan or to use for their own consumption if the next harvest is not good. And they become masters of their own situation. So that's just one example, but that is needed everywhere. Africa is extremely low in its storage capacity, and a lot of the investments that have taken place over the years have been to increase production, but not storage. So this is one of those solutions that, if it remains scarce in terms of food storage possibilities, we're going to continue with land conflicts, pressures, food security pressures that create tension in communities. We want to create economic investments that bind people together in a common destiny, showing that by working together, they can improve their situation, and then makes them want to work together even more over time. That's the vision of a peace bond, is to find the economic investment opportunities that can bind communities closer together, especially across divides, build trust, and show that by working together, they can lift all the boats.
All right, interesting times ahead. But finally, I'd like to get your thoughts in terms of the biggest takeaways from the conversation so far.
I think the enthusiasm for this is enormous, and the African Development Bank is really playing a leadership role on this agenda, which is extremely encouraging. The leadership of the bank really gets it. They understand the reality of the communities on the ground and how to connect them to the global markets and to stimulating entrepreneurship on the continent. And by partnering with them, we're going to be able to do amazing things. But the momentum is behind this. We need our economies to no longer be divisive. In so many countries, everyone's fighting over the cake. It's not just about making the cake bigger so people fight less for each portion. It's about creating incentives in the economy that make everyone work together and lift the society, strengthen the social contract between people and between people and the authorities as well, in terms of the role and the behavior of the state. So the opportunity is there, the momentum is there. The African Development Bank is taking a leadership role. Peaceinvest is pioneering this new market of peace bonds, not just in Africa, but in the Middle East and elsewhere. But we think that this is the new way that business should be done, and that by doing it the right way, with the stakeholders being fully part of the process, it's better for business.